right, I am back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup, doing it a day early because tomorrow is the 4th of July, so won't be able to do it then. You probably won't be able to watch it then, so here we are. It's certainly not like we don't have enough stories to cover this week, and this is sort of a bearer of bad news week where all of these stories, except one, are bad in some way or another. We will start with the baddest. Well, that sounds good. The worst. That would be the massive Xbox layoffs and game cancellations that have happened over the past 24 hours or so. We knew that this was coming. There were some, insider reports buzzing around that the 9,000 Microsoft layoffs would include a number at the Xbox division. So this is like console war thing. Xbox has a lot of problems. This is something that's attached to a larger Microsoft slim down as they, replace everyone with AI. I don't even know what's happening with them. But Xbox obviously has its own issues. It's about to have even more issues because it has canceled, I would say, one of its two highest profile games that were supposed to arrive in the next few years. That would be Perfect Dark. I'd probably put Fable and Perfect Dark together as some really big first party games that they're working on. You may recall that Perfect Dark was being made by the Initiative, which Microsoft assembled just for this, and it was a quadruple A studio. Recommendation: never call anything quadruple A. Skull and Bones is not a quadruple A video game. The Initiative is not a quadruple A developer because they also needed Crystal Dynamics brought in to help with this. Perfect Dark is canceled. The Initiative is shut down. The contract with Crystal Dynamics has been severed. Disaster. This was reportedly, troubled production, and we haven't heard much about this for years. Another complicating factor is that apparently the pretty cool trailer that was shown fairly recently after years of nothing was probably fake, in terms of that was not the game being played. It was a representation of what the game would like when you were playing it or something. It's one of those, slices that is more like proof of concept and look, this is going to be cool, than okay, this is actual gameplay. This is how far along they are. Bullshit. Bunch of assholes making them show that. Okay. That's bad. That's really bad. Now we just have Fable. I genuinely was looking forward to Perfect Dark, and I thought that gameplay footage looked awesome until I figured out it is probably not gameplay footage. That was not the only cut. I wrote a whole list of these cuts today, but there's almost too many to go through in just this short amount of time. The other big one was Everwild. This was a new original IP that Rare was working on. The catch here, it's bad enough as it is, but Phil Spencer was talking about I went and visited Rare and saw Everwild, and it's really shaping up, and we love that we're able to give the time to the studio they need. That was 5 months ago or something, and here we are. It's dead. And then there have been a number of other games canceled. There was a John Romero studio game canceled. There's been some projects within Bethesda that have been canceled. A MMORPG from the Elder Scrolls Online team has been canceled. Cuts, just general cuts across King, the mobile arm, across Raven and Sledgehammer, the Call of Duty guys, and then Turn 10 has reportedly been decimated. They make Forza Motorsport, implying that who knows what's going to happen with that series. This may switch to just Horizon. Disaster. People chiming in what about the game PlayStation's canceled? Yeah, that sucks too. Their live service thing sucks. But Microsoft is just doing these huge swaths of layoffs, huge mass cancellations all at one time. Just the Xbox brand has certainly had some problems through all this, but this, I don't know how anyone can look at Xbox now and be excited about that brand. The thing through all this is the Xbox division is still making money, and one of the crazy things here was in the statement about this with Phil Spencer saying oh, we're restructuring these layoffs, we're losing valuable team members, blah blah blah. Then in the middle, he's well, this comes at a time when Xbox is shining and being its most profitable and expanding, and it's what the hell are you doing? It's so contrary to what you would imagine would be happening. And, this is a larger scale version of Hi-Fi Rush, one of the most praised games of the year. What a win for Xbox. And we're closing the studio. It's just these things do not seem logical. And, even if they are or whatever, financially behind the scenes, it's still devastating to watch. As we speak, there may be more news stories about what's happening because they said it would unfold over the coming week, right before the holiday, obviously. Evie, what are you doing? So that's as much as I can probably condense into a segment here. Moving on to more bad news, probably less important because it's no one getting fired. Neil Druckmann has announced that he will be leaving production of the Last of Us show. It's not like creative differences. I don't think he's saying he has to go work on Intergalactic, the Heresy Prophet. Is that right? The Prophet Heresy, whatever it's called. Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. That's right. Okay. So he's got to go work on that. And guess what's happening? He's turning the entire show over to Craig Mazin. Craig Mazin being, he's the guy who did Chernobyl, which is awesome. So him coming aboard this was pretty cool. Him and Druckmann seemed to work well together in season 1. Season 2 was mostly written by him, including pretty much all the really controversial changes to Ellie, which were just very bad and really only got worse over time. Druckmann did like the best episode of the season himself. That was the flashback episode with Joel. And like Mazin is taking over now. That is certainly for season 3. And then Mazin has said publicly that they need 4 seasons to finish this, the show based on the second game. They need 3 seasons just for the second game alone. This is bad news. Like, I don't really know how you spin it unless Mazin just suddenly, a light bulb goes on and he's able to really, really adapt the game super well, which has not been the case with season 2. I have to imagine the show's not going to get better. We're also in a bizarre situation where it's probably going to be another 2.5 years until season 3 arrives. Season 3 will arrive with none of the characters that we've been following for 2 years. It will be a whole story about Abby and her friends. So for general audiences, I don't think that's going to go very well. We game players know that's how it worked, and yet when Ellie's story ends, we can start playing Abby's story about 5 seconds later. We don't have to wait 2.5 years for that, and then another 2.5 years to switch back to Ellie because of insane production times on this. So yeah, bad news. I don't have a lot of faith in Mazin being able to do this. And yeah, I guess we'll see what's going to happen here, but not great. I don't think that's great. Another sad story that is maybe not as high profile of these, we know that People Can Fly, the developer, had 2 games canceled a long time ago, as that studio has suffered a lot of troublesome losses, layoffs, stuff like that. It was seemingly confirmed this week that one of those games was Outriders 2. That was sort of rumored before, but it was also came with the news that this game was almost finished. And that's certainly not good news for those who actually did like Outriders and wanted to see it continue. I know the idea was that it did not have, that big of an audience over the long term, which is why it ultimately, wasn't the big new IP that it was allegedly supposed to be. It was hugely praised at the beginning and had a really good launch, and then we pretty much never heard any praise for it again because players dropped off really quickly. There were a ton of technical issues at launch. There was the crazy bug that deleted your inventory completely for a month. Really, really bad stuff there. But I still fundamentally believe this was a great looter shooter. This had so many cool things in terms of build crafting and how loot systems worked. I thought it was amazing in terms of how they did that. I don't really like third-person shooters, but this was a really good one. Once you kind of learned how to play it and understood that cover is for the enemies, not for you. You're not playing this as a cover-based shooter for the most part. It gets a lot more fun. I do wonder what amount of people tried to play it like Gears of War and said it sucked and bounced off. It does suck if you're playing it like that, but I think those that really gave it a shot ended up thinking it was pretty cool. And it sucks. I really wish that we could have gotten an Outriders 2. It's not really like an Anthem situation because Anthem was pretty big failure from the start. And it wasn't about a sequel to Anthem. It was is this game ever going to add the other 60% it's missing? To know that there was a sequel almost done for Outriders 2 is tough to hear. And I really wish that did not have to play out that way. Some people were like, Microsoft, buy the Outriders IP and People Can Fly and build it. It's yeah, okay, Microsoft is in a great spot to keep buying people and reviving IPs. So unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to come of that, and we can just wonder about what could have been. I'll move to one point of good news, and it's about Marathon of all things. This week, I saw a pretty quickly deleted leak from the NDA alpha about some changes that have been made for that. Guess it probably was a good idea to put the NDA on the alpha, because there have not been many leaks of this nature due to legal pursuits. This apparently was not person in the alpha, but I'm assuming their friends gave it to them or something. This originally showed a number of screenshots about how the game looks now. Those got deleted apparently because Bungie asked nicely. It's I don't think that many people saw them, but they were mostly of exteriors and how the exteriors have improved. They definitely improved. They seemed a lot more dense with the foliage. They seemed to have a lot better lighting. And then, improvements were definitely made there. There are also bits of news that they're doing things like or experimenting with corpses being on the ground instead of everyone just turning into duffel bags only. This is something that marketing has been multiple corpses on the ground. Like, it's very corpse based. So having that as like a bit of extra, I don't want to say realism, is cool. In addition to that, I guess if you get killed in the water, it like spreads your blue blood everywhere, like that initial trailer we got, which I think is pretty cool. So if that ends up being added to the game, I dig that. The other stuff is more, I don't want to say quality of life. I don't know. It's stuff that was going to be added kind of regardless. There's more weapons. There's like a new sniper rifle, a volt-powered one. There are more kind of clear indicators about events that are happening on the map. They are beefing up the AI. They've changed some icons of things. There's a material exchange in the black market. So, I'm not converting over to like, oh, well, alpha changes. This is going to be great now. But it's positive. I said I would report on positive developments with Marathon if there were any. And from the leaks that were laid out here, it seems like improvements, certainly. And I'm happy to see that. I really don't want Marathon to fail. I promise you I don't. It is much better for me if Marathon does not fail and I can cover it for a long time rather than 2 months and it gets shut down, which I don't think will happen, but we'll see. Finally, we'll stay with Bungie because I didn't get to make a full video on this. They had another Destiny 2 stream this week about the Edge of Fate. This time it was pretty much actually about the Edge of Fate. They had a big 20-minute section on Kepler, the new destination, and the activities there. It's a bit of a weird setup. So they have a campaign, and then, they didn't really talk about all the electric ball stuff, thankfully, that much. But once you beat the campaign, it goes into sort of a campaign playlist of like missions with modifiers and things. Then there was something on the map where it's kind of, you can upgrade the difficulty with the new world tier system, which I think the world tier system is actually kind of a cool idea. And then it's like a public event, but a lot bigger, and then mixed with something that sounds kind of like a Vex incursion as you're like making your way through the map, killing a bunch of enemies, and this is a way to farm loot. There is also a third thing that is apparently literally like Vex incursion, where it's a big event that rotates around the different sections of the map, and there's also a way to farm gear. What is missing here is some sort of like dedicated activity, like, the coil or whatever normally comes with a season or an expansion. This is, circles back to the size of this thing. Kepler itself seems weird. Like, I don't get what the aesthetic is at all. And like, you look back to the last 5 expansions or whatever, all of those had really clear aesthetics. Final Shape with its, ethereal fantasy, Witch Queen and its architecture, Beyond Light and its frozen tundra, and then even Lightfall with its neo-futuristic stuff. Here, I don't, everything I'm showing, it's like a fallen tunnel sewer system with a lot of spores. The destination armor is, I don't really understand. It just, all of this seems kind of ugly, and that's not really something you usually see from Bungie. Also, in terms of scope, this appears like it's going to be pretty small because I don't think you can use your Sparrow. I think the only real destination that's happened in is Mercury, where they eventually made you able to use your Sparrow, but it took a while. I don't think it's going to be as small as Mercury, But they said like, oh, it'll compare to the size of Rise and Iron in terms of like destination size. So that would be the Plague Lands. That is not very big. They are adding the Plague Lands 3 months from now, so we have to take stuff like that under consideration. But generally speaking, I don't know what exactly this will be compared to with the current setup of planets, but this doesn't seem like a traditional planet in the sense of it's this big open patrol space. You'll be zipping around. You'll be zipping around, but as an electric ball. Then we'll just skip ahead to the portal. The portal is the system of like what you're supposed to log in and do at any given time in Destiny going forward. I don't know, man. I didn't love this. So they showed solo ops, which are lost sectors. That's it. And I think solo Crucible playlists. I thought they were gonna like add something or like they built specific activities for solo ops, which maybe they will in the future, but that has not happened yet. And then fire team ops were not much different. I mean, we kind of know what to expect. It strikes. They put like the coil back, but I mean, people were like commenting that the bulk of the stream was them playing an Empire Hunt, a 5-year-old activity that was not terribly compelling in the first place. And the way they update it here was to give Briggs a trillion health and then throw a trillion champions in there. They showcased the new modifier system a little more than they have in the past. That whole thing, it sounds cool in theory, but like it feels like you're mainly going to be using it in solo ops and then with a pre-made fire team. Because if you're just doing it, the playlist, it's like set modifiers that you can't even modify. If you do fire team finder, you know, how you're setting all these modifiers up with randoms. Like, do you want to spend 10 minutes doing that before everything you run? Like, it's a cool system that I think is going to be less cool in practice once people figure out how it will actually be used and the limits of that system. I'm not wild about the portal, or at least how the portal is going to launch initially, which I think is going to be a pretty significant problem for engagement if people are just kind of being told in and play a bunch of random old stuff in the portal. Okay, so that's enough. That should have been its own video, but I'll call it a day there. 2 weeks to launch, and you know we'll talk about it more then. Just briefly, what I'm playing: Dune Awakening. Playing a lot of Dune Awakening. Not a lot because I have a newborn, as you can see here, who sleeps 6 inches away from me during the day. She's on a walk now with my wife, which is the only time I get to record videos these days, which is not often. Really like that game. I'm not a survival player at all. Probably the only reason I'm playing it is because I have a couple of friends that are also playing it, that we're in a little guild and we made our own private server, and like I'm being, you know, handheld through a lot of systems I wouldn't be able to fully comprehend myself. So that aspect is fun. And now, because I have that, I'm able to have a good amount of fun with that game. I will probably put it down once Destiny comes. I'll have to play that more, but that's kind of my gaming time these days. So anyway, that is the 4 days of the week here, and hopefully by the time I finish recording this, there are not more Xbox layoffs, but I guess we'll see. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.